Come join us at the table now for the Public Square from the American Policy Roundtable. I'm Wayne Shepherd, and here we are with Dave Zanotti and Melanie Elsey and Jeff Sanders, Rob Walgate, and our producer, Alan C. Duncan. And let's see, who's up to start the show today? Rob, was it you?
Oh, he deferred.
He did. He did. Oh.
I'll take the ball in the second half, Wayne.
Okay. All right. He deferred.
We wanted to talk today about transitioning, about moving from one thing to another, about moving from the challenge of surviving this election, because I think no matter whether you won, you lost, you were happy, you were sad, I think people feel like they got beat up pretty good. I noticed that I had a little bit of time to turn television on, and I was scrolling through football games, and it was really funny because I realized after about 20 minutes of this that my brain was having a little problem because I kept waiting for the hit piece, the commercial, the political commercial, and they weren't there.
Yeah. Suddenly they disappeared.
Wow. So now I can breathe again. I can not only mute them, which I always do anyhow, but I can actually breathe while in the process. So it's just so delightful to be delivered from political commercials.
There were some end zone dances, though. There were.
Yeah, that's what I heard. Yeah, I didn't get any of those games, but I heard about it. But and so there's a certain predisposition on everybody's part to say, okay, we've come to the end of the 4-year cycle. We endured that really incredibly painful time. It is so wonderful just to get back onto living life as it is normal, this normal life, normal American life. And there's something very charming about that, and something that's actually very genuine as well, in that politics, in a system that's ordered correctly, is not supposed to be the focus and consumption of our lives.
Mm.
Political involvement is to be a responsibility of service that we do. And if we all do our part, then we can get on with doing many other things that God has called us to do in our lives. Politics only becomes excessive when it gets to the point where very few people are trying to dictate to everybody else what reality is, and that's where the fight comes from. And when you put it off for 4 years and say, I'll give it 20 minutes of attention every 4 years, you got a lot of catching up to do. And so this is a time now where we are entering what would normally be the low cycle of the political spectrum. We would be in the off election year, right? 2025, 4 years till a presidential election. And everyone's going, yeah, we'll get to politics, maybe next year. All right. But but guess what? We're not going to have that luxury.
No normal.
This is a totally different situation. Rob, I can see you. I can see you coming out of your chair.
Well, the transition's about to happen. And when you talk about a transition, this will be unlike any that we've experienced, because you're going to have someone coming into office.
Wait, but you just sounded like Donald Trump. This is going to be a transition like we've never seen before? It's going to be.
Oh, no. Well, it is because you're going to have someone that understands they're on a bit of a time limit. You know, we know Donald Trump can only serve as president for 4 years, but we also know in that first 18 months, that first 2 years, he's going to try and get as much done as he possibly can with the new team that he wants to put in place, because midterms haven't been too kind throughout history to the sitting president, especially a sitting president that only has 2 years left, that cannot run for re-election. So it will be a transition unlike any that we've ever seen. And I think that's why you're seeing him and his team try and get the names out there for who they want to see confirmed as quickly as possible.
So before we get into putting up Christmas trees, it seems like it might be a good time to evaluate our expectations, because we are about to see something that has not been seen for over a century. A president of the United States who was elected for one term, then did not return into a second term for office, then ran in a non-concurrent term and was elected. Now, we have no experience with that in the modern presidency. Zip. This is brand new territory.
It is brand new territory. And also, you don't hear any names mentioned that were in the first administration coming back for the second part of the administration. So it isn't like, hey, we're going to get the band back together. There's a long list of names of new faces and people that are that are coming forward.
It's a lot of jobs, it's a lot of work, and it's going to be a tremendous pace. So before we get to thinking that, well, this is the typical situation where, okay, we got new people up there. Let's everybody settle down. Let's, eat some turkey, enjoy some Detroit Lions football. Just chill out and kind of get back to what it's sort of like to talk to each other, and you can wave at your neighbor again. And I had one neighbor grab me this morning and said, I am so glad that person 3 doors down from you with those signs, and then it all goes away now. It's gone. It's all gone. Okay.
Would you have them send my neighborhood and take down the signs, please?
But it's gone till you get to Thanksgiving dinner. So there could be some awkward dinners.
Lots of fireworks there.
It could be.
Well, what we're going to be is Rob, to use a basketball term, we're going to be in full court press. This is going to start really fast.
Yeah, we're going to see how well people like drinking out of a fire hose. That's for sure. It's going to be in their faces, in our faces, and a lot of discussion and a lot of things. And it's going to be interesting for me. One thing I'm going to be watching is the corporate media, because they are having somewhat of a meltdown over some of the names that have been put forth. But are they going to be able to keep up and having their meltdown with the different number of names? And how is that going to look as we go throughout this process of hearings?
Well, I want to really mess things up, Wayne, because what I want to do is actually talk right now. And by the way, this is going to be an interesting show. This subject's going to change 3 times before we get done, and we're going to end up with some really fun stuff. So just stick with us. We're going to be okay here.
Okay.
All right. What I want to do is I want to go back to the idea of what is a reasonable set of expectations in regards to a presidential administration. Now, Dr. William Allen, who's a member of our trustees and the eminent political philosopher, the gentleman for whom our library is named at the American Mission Center, the William B. Allen Library, such a good friend to all of us, he preached a sermon on a recent Sunday, and it was post-election. It was called his election sermon, and he preached it at his home church, and where he is often in the pulpit, and by invitation, and he basically said that in the old days, election sermons were always delivered after the election, not before. The pulpit was not a place where people expected to be told where to vote or to whom to vote for, because that was already a settled matter on the public square. That was everywhere. It was in every dining room table, every household, and every public square. The pastor would do an election sermon post-election for the purpose of explaining to the elected officials what God expected of them now that they were elected.
Oh, I see.
And so he delivered that message from that point of view, which was wonderful. And what he said was, once you're elected, you are obligated to far more than your campaign shibboleths, which was a classic William B. Allen moment.
Yeah.
In other words, all that blah, blah, blah that you put out there on the campaign trail, you think you're obligated to return those promises? No. There's a much higher authority to whom you now answer, because civil government has been given to men by God. And to represent people in civil government is one of the highest and most sacred responsibilities in the human experience. So here's news for you. You thought you were going to answer to the voters. You're going to answer to somebody higher than that as well. And so that's where he started his sermon, which I thought was absolutely fascinating. So I thought what we might do today is take some time and consider what would be reasonable expectations, given that the upcoming administration has only 48 months to execute them, 2 sessions of Congress. So let me roll the clock back. And let's talk about what we did when Donald Trump was first elected in 2016, and this surprised people. We wrote a monthly update, and that would have come out in January of 2017, in which we said we only have 3 hopeful expectations from the new administration. Just 3. Then it got more shocking. The first is that they handle responsibly the opportunity, if it comes to them, of replacing Supreme Court justices. The second is that they work together with key members in the Senate, like Senator Rand Paul, to try to fix some of the blazing problems that we've got with Obamacare. Because you're not going to eliminate it in 2017, but you could help fix some things that would help a lot of people and make more sense out of all of this. And then the third thing was a repeal of the Johnson Amendment. And the Johnson Amendment, for our new listeners, is an amendment that was passed by one vote in the Senate that amends IRS regulations that says that churches may not be involved in talking about candidate campaigns or doing anything that might be perceived as influencing the outcome of an election. Well, we think that's a blatant violation of the First Amendment and of free speech and of religious thought and of conscience and religious expression.
And the club that's held over their head is the interruption of their tax-exempt status, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, you can still say whatever you want to say, but they'll just take your tax-exempt status away from you. So they're dangling the dollar bill in front of you.
And it's been a regulation that has almost never been enforced or even attempted to because it's so ridiculous, but it's still on the books, and we think it would be a great idea for not just the symbolism of the First Amendment, for the integrity of our constitutional government to get rid of it, so that we set only 3 expectations, just 3. Now, you have to ask yourself in the first term of Donald Trump, how'd they do?
All right. Well, Dave has laid it out for us. Let's talk about it with you on the Public Square here today. Stay with us now. We'll be back with more.
Spreading the light of liberty across the land. Now back to the Public Square.
Back with you on the Public Square now. All right, we talked about those expectations in 2017. Let's talk about them where we are now, Rob.
Well, I'm going to go back even a little bit further because I would go back to 2009, 2010 Congress, because if you'd asked expectations for Democrats, they had 60 votes in the Senate, they had the House, they had the presidency. You would think of all things they could get done that you could list anything you want. And really, the only thing they got done was Obamacare, right? That was it.
Yep.
And in doing that, the Democrats lost Ted Kennedy's seat in Massachusetts during the next election cycle. It went to a Republican. Now, some would say it wasn't a very conservative Republican, but again, it was a Republican that was elected in Massachusetts. So as people talk about their expectations and what lies ahead, remember, even with all of that, that's what the Ds were able to get done. Will Donald Trump and others be able to cut through everything and get more done?
Well, we got to go back to what we talked about on the setup of 2016. So we put 3 things out there, and one was to work on Obamacare. And you know what they did?
Yes.
Now, it was pretty quiet. It was done through lots of different pieces and parts. They made some improvements. They did not abolish Obamacare, which is a significant project at this stage in the game. The Johnson Amendment, that was a total flop. President Trump was absolutely willing and completely committed to wanting to do that. And what happened was arguments among Christian organizations in Washington, D.C. confused the whole issue. The Christians got afraid that if they went for this, they would be somehow criticized in the media of trying to use charitable dollars to elect political campaigns and candidates. They were afraid of that argument. They folded when the pressure came, and leadership got tired of waiting on them, and they moved on. That was not something that the administration or the Congress failed on. That was something that Christians in Washington, D.C., who had an opportunity to do good for everyone, for Christians, Jews, Muslims, for everyone, they missed it. Maybe they'll get another turn. I don't know. But the third thing was, would the administration responsibly handle the Supreme Court appointments? And what was promised on the campaign trail was that nominees would come off of a list of 25. They did. They were confirmed, and they've had an impact. So one of the 3. This is called a lesson in lowering expectations, because they were looking at the potential of having 8 years. They only have 4. Now they know they only have 4. So what's realistic? And Rob, you automatically said, look, the Democrats had the president the Congress and the Senate, and a 60% supermajority, which enabled them to blow past the filibuster at every level. They made a shot for the biggest thing that they wanted. They could have made that shot for immigration reform.
They could have tried to codify Roe.
Yeah.
They could have, talk about firearms from a federal perspective, things I think would have ran into constitutional challenges, but they could have done anything and gotten it through and got it signed and at least started the fight, but they didn't.
And they chose nationalized health care.
Yes.
You don't have to go that far back. You can go to the first 2 years of the Biden administration. Biden had the Senate and he had the House. What did he accomplish? This is not any personal slam against anybody. I was told by listening to certain people on the radio, oh my goodness, if a certain party owns all three branches of the government, you're going to have Puerto Rico become the 51st state, and you're going to have court packing, and you're going to have this, and this. And none of that took place. None of it happened. Instead, you had a multi-trillion-dollar bill passed, and that's, correct me if I'm wrong, that's really the only thing that Biden was able to accomplish in his administration in the first 2 years.
Yeah, they had two pieces of legislation passed, both which were expenditures. One was infrastructure, the other was New Green Deal or Inflation Reduction Act, which ended up being John Podesta's checkbook in regards to funding all of the environmental climate change stuff and going all over the world to travel to give away American money. All right, that was it.
Right.
That's what they got done. And then within 2 years, the Congress eroded and they lost their strength. And then, of course, they will also blame COVID for a big part of that. Okay, we get that. That was choices that they made. But it wasn't a very effective 4 years. Now, why should we have any expectations that the next 4 years with a president, no matter who it is, even though he has the House and the Senate, but he doesn't have a 60% supermajority? So you have the Senate, but not exactly. Because to get to any vote, from 53 to 60 is still 7 votes. That means 7 Democrats have to come along for the ride. So how far do you have to lower your expectations from the campaign shibboleths, to quote Dr. Allen, to the reality of dealing with your neighbor? Melanie, you've been warming up this whole time. Fire.
You've been very patient, Melanie.
I have two very basic thoughts. Number one, with the team that President-elect Trump has pulled together, I'm not sure we even can imagine how to manage expectations, because I think there are going to be changes made that are going to be first time in history type changes in terms of looking to reduce waste and trimming down the scope of government as a whole. We don't know what that's going to look like yet. So it's in terms of managing any kind of expectation on that portion of the team that he's putting together is, I think, very exciting and I think we'll have some surprises along the way that will go beyond our expectations. The second point is, if I'm the general public looking from the outside in, my very basic expectation would be keep your promises. You made promises on the campaign trail. You have a reputation for keeping promises, but there were promises with regards to the immigration system. We already see that movement is happening in terms of putting people in place to accomplish that. But there are also changes that were promised to the tax code that's going to take Congress. You can't do changes to the tax code through executive order. So in terms of expectations, I think it's going to be just very core, basic campaign promises that are low-hanging fruit to try to get accomplished in your first 2 years. Because if you can't accomplish some of those basic promises in the first 2 years, then the public is going to respond in the midterms and in 2028.
Agreed, Melanie. And what do you all think about? There's been promises on the campaign trail to drill more in America, to get more oil, more natural gas, so that gas prices can come down, so that shipping goods will be less.
They won't need Congress for that. Yeah. That will be undone in probably the first 20 days in terms of executive orders.
So that's something that we should expect to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's one of my memories from the campaign trails, watching the debate and the question being posed regarding the economy and different things, and it wasn't answered correctly by one of the candidates regarding energy. Alan, if you remember, our phone blew up from DZ as he was saying, talk about energy prices. This, like, he's telling us what to talk about while we watch the Democratic candidate stumble over their words and not understand, as well as the moderator of the debate, not understand how to frame the question in the proper context. So yes, energy will be one of the top priorities, I'm sure.
Well, I'm confused about something. Throughout the campaign, President and now President-elect Trump kept saying, we're going to eliminate the U.S. Department of Education, and we're going to eliminate this, eliminate that. Well, I would love to see the U.S. Department of Education eliminated entirely today, but that was created by an act of Congress. You've got to have Congress eliminate the U.S. Department of Education. Am I right? I mean, he can't just with a
Jeff,
stroke of a pen do it.
Because that's kind of an illustrative point to all of this. First off, in regards to getting rid of departments, I'm always mindful of a call that I got many years ago from a governor who came in on a very similar sweeping reform agenda. And it's not the only governor that's discovered this, and we've talked to about. But the first one who called me was so frustrated beyond imagination because he said, the things that we want to do, we cannot do because these are protected employees by civil service. These are unionized employees protected by civil service, and you just can't fire them in a day because you've decided as the executive, we're ending this program. It doesn't work that way.
What if their job is eliminated, though? I mean, that happens in industry all the time, even with union workers.
But who has the authority to eliminate the job? And as you're rightly connoting,
only the legislature.
It's the Congress.
Yeah.
It's the Congress. So we don't exactly have a courageous Congress when it comes to hiring and firing.
Huh.
Now, the complication to that would be, depending on who is selected as the education secretary, there's a lot of language in federal statute that gives deference to the executive branch secretaries. We saw that in Obamacare. You shall and you may. So it could be that the elimination of positions comes...
The secretary shall, the secretary may, right?
Right. It could be that the elimination of those positions or certain positions comes through the permissive authority already in statute for that particular secretary.
That, Wayne, is a very, very important point. Thank you, Melanie, because there's two pieces to this. One is executive order. And Alan, to your question about drilling, much of the drilling decision work was made with the president dictating to certain departments, the Department of the Interior and others, what they would or wouldn't do in regards to granting access to the drilling process. That can be eliminated day one and changed and revised. So that is something that is that is basically teed up for the president. All right. But when you come to eliminating the Department of Education, now if you're going to do that, you've got not just executive orders, but you have to instruct federal agencies on how to conduct themselves. So you have to have a cooperation between the secretary of that agency and the White House to begin to pare down and move the organization from one status to another. That can be worked on pretty effectively, but it's going to take a lot of work, and you've only got 48 months, and it would really help if you have a Congress helping you as you're doing that process. Then in the budgeting process, to revise the responsibilities of that agency and to cut the funding of that agency. That is a lot of work, but it is possible. But that's what it would take to keep a promise.
You promised an interesting conversation today, and you've delivered already, but there's more interesting things to come on The Public Square. If you joined us late, you can catch on from the beginning by going online to thepublicsquare.com and listening there, or stay with us now on the radio. Hey, thanks for joining us today on The Public Square. Once again, Dave Zanotti's here, Rob Walgate, Alan C. Duncan, our producer, Jeff Sanders, Melanie Elsey, and I'm Wayne Shepherd. Okay, we're talking about the change in administration and expectations. Rob, you want to pick up the conversation?
Well, I'm going to go to the court part two. We know Donald Trump, he nominated and got confirmed. He appointed 3 justices to the Supreme Court in his first 4 years. And as he comes to take office for the next 4 years, you're looking at Clarence Thomas at 76 years old currently, Sam Alito at 74, and John Roberts turns 70 the month that Donald Trump takes office. So there may be, and I'm guessing there will be, some opportunities for him to nominate some future members of the court. And I also wonder how much of that will be a strategy from the sitting members of the court, because Ruth Bader Ginsburg got a lot of flack for not stepping down sooner. And then Donald Trump was able to replace. So I wonder how that will take place over the next, especially over the next 24 months when there is control of the Senate and Donald Trump's in office.
Well, there have been some people in the Democratic Party who are asking for Justice Sotomayor to step down before the December 31st, or before January 20th, so that President Biden can appoint and get confirmed her replacement. But she's not going to do that. There's no way.
There's no time.
She would even agree.
No, and nor do I think that strategy would work, especially after the outcome of this election. But there is a presumption that the only way any of the Democrat members would depart would be illness or death at this stage in the game. It doesn't seem like there's anyone volunteering to say, I've had enough.
Correct.
Okay. So what would the expectation be on the court? Well, that's a very good point that everybody brings up, is it looks like if there's going to be any replacements. Now, again, nobody knows what tomorrow holds. To everyone is given a time to live and a time to die, right? And then comes the judgment. I mean, we know that the scripture says we don't have total control here over ourselves. So you don't know what's going to happen. And that's part of what being president's all about. I mean, who saw COVID coming? Well, some people did, but it certainly wasn't the Trump administration that saw it coming. And nor did we. So, I mean, nor did most of us. So you don't know what's coming as well. Alan, you had a thought.
Well, mine isn't super policy oriented. We were joking between the breaks, but there was talk on the campaign trail that
no, there will not be a National Chesterton Library established on the Potomac.
Darn it!
Hey, you never.
At least on this side of the pond.
You're
That's
right. No, well, I'd like to see the JFK files opened up and released, and that was a promise on the campaign trail, particularly with RFK Jr. coming on board.
That's one the president could do, isn't it?
JFK, RFK, and MLK. Get all those.
All those. Hey, how about UFO, UAP while we're at it?
Sure.
Yeah, and that's something, Melanie, right? The president could do that. He could do that day one.
Mm-hmm. With the cooperation of whoever he puts in place in the AG's office and elsewhere.
And he can close the border with ICE.
Once again, you see the pattern. If the president has cooperative people at the heads of these agencies, then the executive order can begin to work through administrative code and be executed. Now, there's a point at which Congress can rise up and stop this process. And we have to be careful because ruling by executive order is not healthy for our republic.
Right.
It is not a healthy way to go.
Correct.
Right? Congress is the lawmaking body. We have an administrative state that is far, far, far too large, and we are not naive enough to think that in any way, shape, or form, any single administration or any 4-month period is going to dismantle that. It's a bad situation that's going to take a lot more. But if a change of direction is accomplished that then can go forward 8 years and 12 years and 16 years down the road, well, then there is always hope. Rob, you had a thought.
Well, you just mentioned the administration and the bureaucracy and how large it is. I guess I just wanted to get your thoughts on, we know one thing they're talking about is Doge with Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk to talk about government efficiency. And they're talking about the transparency and eliminating expenditures at the federal government, eliminating things that are happening where our money's being wasted. I know Rand Paul always has his Festivus posts online to get people fired up on what money is being wasted and spent on. So maybe he won't have as long of a list in 2025. I don't know. But your thoughts on that?
Well, I can't think of anybody that makes more sense to listen to than Rand Paul when it comes to the question of government healthcare and government waste. Dr. Paul I just think he's a great American. He's paid a significant price to be where he is. He has been a genuinely persecuted person, even in his home state, being attacked by someone in his own backyard and almost lost his life. I mean, this guy, I saw him walking through the airport recently, and it's so funny because Rand Paul has the ability to look like no one as he's walking through an airport. He had everyone that was with him, his entourage, was totally normal. No suits, no ties. The way he was dressed, the way he had his hair, the way he had and he was able to walk through. And I watched him on the plane. I watched him through he flew commercial through the airport, and he got away with it. I knew, and a few other people knew, but he got away with it. He's really good at staying low key, but he's brilliant in his understanding of what needs to be done. I know he doesn't have a position, but I don't know that there's anybody Donald Trump should listen to more than Rand Paul. Jeff.
I've got a question about this Doge, which is interesting. That's the name of the ruler of the Republic of Venice. He was called the Doge of Venice. Doge.
It's also the name of the meme coin Elon Musk came up with.
Oh, is that it?
A handful of years ago.
I didn't know that. So, but how can President Trump?
I thought it was a martial arts thing. What do you call those martial arts?
Dojo.
That's not
a dojo. A dojo.
Oh,
yes,
dojo. Okay,
I learned in a dungeon dojo.
Cobra Kai, whatever.
Cobra Kai.
But anyway, I digress. So how can President Trump create this new department? I mean, again, that's an act of Congress to do that.
No, it isn't. It's not going to be a government agency. It's going to be an agency outside of the structure.
So it's just two guys, Elon and Vivek, getting together.
With a mission statement. Basically, they'll be given access to review, and they will make recommendations which the executive branch will have to follow
Who
through.
is giving them access to all these documents? The president has that authority to do that.
Yes, the president has that authority. And there is precedent, Jeff, for independent commissions in the past that have done great significant studies on healthcare and other questions. The Grace Commission was something that did a very similar work prior to the Reagan administration coming in, and they had a huge, big proposition on government waste, et cetera. It was very helpful. So yeah, it's very smart for them to not, a lot of shortcut language was used about creating a department. No, it's creating a commission. And I love the fact that they were given a deadline of July 4th, 2026. I don't know if we can handle all that truth. That's maybe, Rob, back to your fire hose. That might be the gift that keeps on giving come our 250th birthday.
And I think you're going to see the bureaucratic engine in full force trying to delay or slow it down of the things they try and cut. I think they're going to try and, extend the clock and try and delay them, because they said they did have that 18-month window. They did have that ability. So I'm sure that's not going to stop Elon Musk.
And I think the mechanics of how this is going to happen is they're going to provide what is being described as advice and guidance to the president, because the president has to submit his budget to Congress. So I think the result of what they are going to try to accomplish in reviewing the waste and the bloatedness of the federal government will show up on paper in the form of the budget recommendations that come from the president to Congress.
So, Wayne, you see how complicated this is?
Yeah, and I'm also thinking one area we haven't discussed is economics or treasury or anything like that.
It's complicated. It's kind of exciting, though. If you've been through it before and you've got enough of a sense of, okay, we can do this. But will require a great amount of energy, and that's why I would encourage everyone to pray for the people that are stepping in with the intention of trying to change the direction of the size of the federal bureaucracy. And I personally think that is a wholly nonpartisan prayer, because our government is way too big. If we, and I pray that the Doge gives us the worst news first and doesn't sugarcoat anything, because the truth about our status is such that we need the truth, and we need it in a hurry.
A lot of headlines are going to be written in the next couple of years, aren't they? And it's going to be interesting, as you say. We'll talk more about this on the Public Square, but thanks for your support of this weekly conversation and other programs from the American Policy Roundtable, which may or may not be on your station. They're all online at thepublicsquare.com.
Spreading shining the light of liberty across the land. Now back to the public square.
Once again, great to have you listening to the Public Square today. Let's turn the attention back on ourselves here, Dave, as the American Policy Roundtable. And where are we going as an organization between now and the inauguration?
Well, that's a great question, Wayne. And one of the things that we hope for every day, we meet every week, we pray, we open the Bible, we talk together, and we have an operating platform. If you want to know what it is, you don't have to go to a corporate manual. You can go to the 12th chapter of the book of Romans. Because we firmly believe that, particularly starting with verses 1 and 2, that's where reality begins, when we offer ourselves to God and let Him renew our minds to show us how we are to live and how we are to affect the world around us. It's a spiritual equation, and it's something that, St. Paul said, I die daily. That meant he was literally giving himself up every day. Not his will, but God's will be done. And so I think we need to pray the Lord's Prayer and mean it and believe it on behalf of our entire government, those who oppose as well as those who are advocating, because we are all in this together. And our system is set up in such a way that we have to expect that people who disagree will now function within their context of constitutional permission and ability and do their opposition. And that has to be respected. Now, we can disagree and completely work to annihilate the ideas, but we have to respect people's rights in the sense that they have the right to resist, to oppose. Just like when we don't get our way, we resist and oppose. That's the way the system is established, and it ultimately has to resolve itself on a concept of consent. Now, that's a biblical principle, the consent of the governed. So we are walking in a biblical framework. Whether we choose to recognize it or deny it, it's still there. That's the way it was set up. So we'll continue between now and the next year and the next 4 years to try to bring the first principles of how America was designed back into play, to show people how the system is supposed to work and why it's supposed to work that way and the principles upon which it stands. That is for certain. And we begin every year that conversation by celebrating Christmas. Now you say, what? Broken glass, record scratch, what? Yeah, we start with Christmas because it was John Quincy Adams who told us in the 1800s, the 6th president of the United States, that it's no coincidence that there's a link in our national behavior between the 4th of July and Bethlehem, and that Quincy Adams understood that what actually happened in the founding of the America that his dad put together and he witnessed as a young man, that there was a connection of putting a civil government in the context of biblical principles. And so we'll continue to talk about how that works and what's our right response. Well, the best way to start is to start with Christmas. So that's what we do. And we're about to turn into the Christmas season of programming here on the Public Square. Now, that makes some people say, oh no, you guys are like my security blanket on public policy. Don't go all Christmas-y on me. I still got lots of questions. Well, there's lots of ways that we covered many issues here on the Public Square and the Public Square Media Network. If you're into music and music only, you can go to Hymns on the Square. If you can't wait to start talking about Christmas and historic Christmas and Christmas in America, well, that's coming up in the month of December. A brand new show for 1973. That's the year. As well as we'll have some excerpts from other shows. If you're one of those people who just wants public policy all the time, we got 1850 Main Street, where we'll continue to talk about the issues of every single day. And if you're a family that's looking for more help with American history and Christian responsibility in your kids, we've got Kids on the Square. These are all products that have come to the forefront through the Public Square Media Network because of the support of listeners just like you. And I want to tell you something. Every time I get to say that, it makes me so happy. I don't know whether to laugh or to cry. To be able to be in a position to be able to say to people across the world, all of this programming, all of these conversations, all of these moments of discipleship, all of these wonderful opportunities for public service and change for the good to set captives free come together because of your prayers and your financial support. And I thank you. We all thank you. So it's going to be Christmas time here, and it's coming quick. And right now, Wayne, we've got scheduled tomorrow. We've got scheduled recording for Christmas in America.
Right.
Jeff Taylor, our musical director, couldn't be more excited. He rang me up 3 times yesterday. He is so excited. He said, I think of all the 14 shows that we've done, this will have the best vocal presentations ever.
He says that every time.
No, last year was the music. This year he's specifying the vocals. He's on to the vocals. He's actually called
Jeff
for more rehearsals.
Is that like every election year is the most important election year ever? Is it same
This will be the
principle?
best Christmas ever.
Just remember, when
Same
you get
thing.
to Nashville, you can ask Jeff that question yourself.
Hi, Jeff. We love you.
Yeah. In Jeff, we trust musically. Yeah. Right.
One of the great things about Christmas in America is because it flows from the Music City. We have some of the finest session players and some of the finest recording artists you've ever imagined. And every year it just gets bigger and better with folks who want to come and serve for this wonderful opportunity. We go looking for the manger in a year in history. We've been at it now for 14 straight seasons. Wayne, you're there every year with us.
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, I've been inviting people to come this year, and they say, "Yeah, but what is it like? What's it? What do you do?" And I find it hard to explain. I say, "You got to come and experience it."
It's an old-time radio variety show.
Yeah, there you go. Well, you're better with the words than I am, sure. Okay.
It's an old-time radio variety show. It's live audience recorded to go out all across the country. And it's multimedia. We have some beautiful artwork and slides and presentations and videos, amazing on-stage performances from some of the most wonderful artists, some sing-along opportunities. It's just a Christmas experience where we focus on finding the manger at a year in American history. This year's 1973. Now, you imagine we've done 14 different years, and they've spanned centuries. We've gone all the way back to the 1700s and done this. So this year's 1973, which means most of the people that will be in the house will have been alive and remembered something about 1973.
So we're not going to exhaust our choices of years in the near future, are we? We have plenty to choose from.
Yeah, we got a lot to choose from. And no two stories are ever alike because you go looking for how did Americans experience Christmas in that year? And they are remarkably unique years in how they actually play out. So I can't wait to tell the story. I know we've got a good script when I can't wait to tell the story.
Well, I often wonder, when you announce, in-house what the year is going to be on Christmas in America, I always think, well, what possibly can we wring out of that year? And you always come up with it. You always find those unique things.
Well, and I don't do it alone. We got a lot of help on this team, and I'm really grateful for it. The wonderful thing about it, though, Wayne, is I have to be honest with you. Very rarely do we come to a year thinking we know what the story is, and that's why we picked the year.
Yeah.
This year we picked 1973 almost blind based upon a suggestion someone gave us. We thought, well, let's start. And so we got started, and it didn't go well. All right. It was one of the most difficult years ever to work with, but I think it's going to come out okay in the end.
It reveals itself, doesn't it?
Yeah. Some of the music, of course, the thing I'll tell you one thing everybody says about 1973. It was a really difficult year, but the music was fabulous.
Amen.
This show is going to have a lot of music, more songs than we've ever had in any 2-hour radio variety show ever.
But no bell bottoms, right? No bell bottoms?
Well, I don't know. There may be bell
can't make
bottoms.
that
There may
promise.
be cowbell. I don't know.
I can't make that promise, Jeff.
Wayne in bell bottoms. Are you going to wear
I'm
like
looking
a
for
silk
leisure
shirt
suit
also?
right now.
Well, it happened in 73. It's not going to happen in 2024. I'll tell you that right now. So
Praise the
Jeff,
Lord.
how old were you in 73?
73, I was 11.
Okay.
And yes, I remember bell bottoms and tank top.
I was
hang ten
13, so I was like entering my teenage
Yeah,
years.
yeah. The
76.
silk shirts didn't come out until about 75, 76 with Staying Alive, Staying
You see
Alive.
what we're up against, Wayne? We've got
Yep.
everyone
Oh, I
bringing
know.
their memories
I
into the
know.
process.
I
But
know.
the
So the
music
music
was
would be wonderful.
great.
How do you connect to Christmas in America?
The details are online, thepublicsquare.com or aproundtable.org. Click on events, and you'll find the details there about the 2 live performances in Franklin, Tennessee and Medina, Ohio. And then it'll be on the radio afterwards this season. So watch for it to come to your station. All right, let's take our break. We'll come back. Some of you have to leave us now. If that's the case for your radio station, please listen to the rest online at thepublicsquare.com. But wait, there's more as we continue on the public square today. Let's continue talking about it. It's so much fun to think about what's going to happen at Christmas in America in 1973, which is the year we've chosen from history this time around. Again, 2 performances live on stage in Franklin, Tennessee, Medina, Ohio, coming up in early December. And then it'll hit the airwaves, Dave.
So if I say Jim Croce, anybody got any songs come to mind?
Time in a
If
bottle.
I could save time in a bottle, yes.
Yep.
Leroy Brown?
Yep.
Big bad Leroy.
Bad.
Yeah.
Bad Leroy Brown.
All right, Operator. Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Keeps going.
Operator.
Yeah,
Can
Jim
you help
Croce,
me make
yep,
a call?
I mean, Crosby, Stills, Nash before Young.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay. I mean,
Allman Brothers. Anything by the Allman Brothers. Got to have that.
That's because you're from the South.
Yeah. They were from Georgia, man. I think they were from Macon.
How about Steely Dan?
Yeah.
Big one. All right. There's all kinds of wonderful artists that come up. Now, just in case you're not going to escape completely, there's the Carpenters.
Oh, boy.
Oh, long ago.
Now,
and
the thing about the Carpenters is nobody wants to admit how many lyrics from Carpenters songs are stuck in your head, even though you don't want them there.
I loved him. Oh, Karen Carpenter was so wonderful.
I'm sure there's a little James Taylor in there somewhere.
Yeah, you're going to find there's all
sure.
these different pieces, parts, and elements. Plus, there's wonderful Christmas music, both from the era and, of course, classic Christmas music as well.
Yeah.
So the music is, and I'll tell you, friends, these shows sell out. So if you get online right now, you might have a chance. Okay. And I wish we'd love to do 5, 6, 7. We're trying to figure out how to take the show on the road for a week to go to different cities again. More than 2, we would love to do that. It really is just a matter of funding over time. We're kind of stretched as far as we can go. Yeah. But they're such wonderful celebrations. They are so cool. And you are going to find more music than you can shake a stick at. Wayne, you got a thought?
Well, I'm just apologizing to Alan. There was no rap in 1973, so.
Well, it's actually
Wait.
it's considered the birth year of rap. So
How about that?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? All right.
Alan got the script.
Never say
Wayne,
never.
Okay.
And
all right.
he corrected me.
Well,
Said,
I was a
"Excuse me."
good Christian boy, and I didn't listen to rap in those days.
Oh,
wow.
oh.
That's okay, Alan. You weren't
Ding,
born
ding,
then.
ding.
I
Let's
wasn't
get
born.
ready to rumble. Here we go. Okay. Wayne Shepherd, radio disc jockey in 1973, is taking on the reality of Bronx rap starting in that same August of that same year. In fact,
I stand corrected.
It started it was house parties, Wayne. It wasn't even on the radio yet, really. It was started
okay.
at
All right.
block parties,
Okay.
house parties. Yeah, just supposed to be just a fun time.
So you've done the research, huh, Alan?
Well, actually, Ethan did a short form documentary on it for a school project.
Are you kidding me?
Oh,
He
neat.
did
Your
the
son.
research.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
My son. Yeah.
Alan could tell us the whole story in rap, probably.
Actually should.
Yeah.
Cheating off your son.
I'm cheating off-
I like that. How'd you find that out? All my kids' homework.
Like you haven't done it, Rob.
so there are so many forms of music that actually, we work off the Billboard hit charts. All right, we try to keep it in the stuff that people will remember. But there are so many different forms of artists.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got Elvis Presley and Dolly Parton on top of the charts. You've got Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. You've got Paul Simon, Jim Croce, James Taylor, the Carpenters. It's Steely Dan. It just keeps going and going and going and going. So it's going to be a blast. There's something for everybody in this show.
Well, the music makes it fun, but what's in your mind about why bring music into this presentation?
Well, in this particular one, the band's actually going to be the focus of the show because music was such a big part of the year of 1973. Okay. And part of the reason it was such a big part of the year is because 73 was kind of a lousy year. The economy was bad, and people are going back now and remembering, going, oh, wait a second. Whoa. I remember gas lines.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The Arab-Israeli, the Yom Kippur War,
OPEC.
and first time ever.
And then we've had
gas
young
line.
people that we've been kind of doing a little bit of work on the script with different age groups, and we've had young people come back and say, I learned about Watergate in school from one page. I never knew what an impact it had on the country. Yeah, we were looking at the collapse of an entire presidency in 1973.
True.
I mean, the president gets inaugurated to a second term in January, And by October, we're talking about impeachment. Now, impeachment has become quite a frequent experience in America since that time. Impeachment was like the death penalty. All right, back then. I mean, the idea that we had to go back to the Civil War. We're going to impeach a president? Are you kidding me? This was actually unfolding before our very eyes. So the question is, where was Christmas in the midst of all that? Well, that was kind of tough to find. I got to tell you, there's not a simple Hallmark moment sitting out there going, oh, look, here it is. Light the fire. I got the movie. Tough find, but some interesting stories about how the joy, the light of the manger, the light of the gospel prevailed in spite of all of it. Fascinating story.
Is that all you're going to say? You're not giving us a tease at all about those stories?
Oh, that's it.
That's it.
You have to we've given away more material now than we almost ever do. So you'll also hear some other Christmas shows on the Public Square between then and now. We'll have a repeat of the Charlie Brown Christmas program because it is the single most visited, most talked about, most often requested program that we do on the Public Square. For those of you that hate Charles Schulz or Charlie Brown, sorry. There aren't many. In all the years, we've had one letter saying, we hate this show. Every year you do it. Sorry, but we're doing it again because it's such a wonderful, wonderful story.
Okay. Are tickets still available, Rob, by the way?
Yeah. Visit us, thepublicsquare.com, and go to events, and you can find tickets. It's gonna sell out. So I hope at the time of this recording there'll be some that are available, but both in Franklin and in Medina.
Right. Go to our website and click on events to find out the information there. And we've made so many friends through the years, Dave, with this show, Christmas in America. You've made friends, I've made friends, the whole staff.
It's remarkable. We invite everyone who can make it to make it. If not, plan to come next year and listen on the radio this year. But one thing that we are committed to is to taking the time every year and the funding and the energy to celebrate the reality that Christ has come to earth, because
Amen.
It is the best news of all human experience. And we need to stop and celebrate that reality every year.
What I enjoy about Christmas in America the most, I think, is the experience that we can give to new people. And those who, like you mentioned, friends that come back every year. But I love it when there's a family that comes and to see the reaction to the full display of the production. They walk away saying, we've never experienced something like that before. That happens repeatedly every year. And we try to invite new families every year to come with ours. And it's just what I enjoy the most.
It's a wonderful experience, Wayne, to know that we have the opportunity to bring something to people that they're so looking forward to, and that it has such an impact on kids, on the next generation. That's why we've saved up all the volumes you can listen to years gone by. There'll be 14 episodes now posted by the end of this year. And 13 of them are waiting right now online at thepublicsquare.com. So you can get an experience of this, and you can share this the whole Christmas season with your family.
Yep. The studio we sit in, when we walk in here, the walls are covered with posters from the previous year's Christmas in America. And as we look around the room, I mean, you always have a smile or a memory from here or there, a story that was told, or in a lot of instances, as Wayne has referenced before, friends that you met for the first time that year that they came and they said, you know what, we'll be at these every year. I mean, the one that we have in Franklin, we know there'll be people there from Illinois and Florida, and they travel from all over. Same with Ohio. They've made it part of their Christmas tradition. Folks that come from New York and Pennsylvania. So it's a fun time for all of us.
And if we could squeeze in one more thought, this year, as in the past years, there are going to be surprises that we're not talking about on radio, so that if you've come every year, you're going to be pleasantly surprised with some elements of the program.
Dave
I'm trying not to.
He has an impish grin on his face right now, so something's up that short sleeve of his. Okay, well, for those of you who can be there, or for those of you who listen on the radio, don't miss Christmas in America this year. Hey, thanks, team. This has been a production of the American Policy Roundtable. Thanks for listening to The Public Square.
The Public Square is a broadcast service of the American Policy Roundtable.